Imagine a hypothetical situation where you sit down at your desk to write a paper one day. You turn on your computer and find that there is a new update for Microsoft Word with a message saying that old versions will no longer be supported. So you wish to update to the new version, but in finding out what's required to update, you find that you must buy Microsoft's new piece of hardware. We'll call it the Epic Typewriter version 1.0. In order to run Microsoft Word, since it's no longer available on the normal PC. There's no reason that Microsoft Word shouldn't run on the PC, only that it's been written that way just so Microsoft can make a sale. And since Microsoft Word is all you've ever used, you're inclined to buy Microsoft's new ridiculous piece of hardware. Fortunately, this has not actually happened to Microsoft Word, but similar things have happened to countless other pieces of more involved software. Not to mention that it's more than just one company trying to make certain things incompatible with other things so that they can make sales. In the long run, we as customers would have to buy every piece of hardware out there in order to run the software that we would want to run. As long as business has been around, there's been a conflict of interest between the customer and the business. In our new information age, computer software is one of the most integral parts of our lives as we use it to manage our schedules, perform tasks that we would otherwise not want to do by hand, and provide an excellent medium for entertainment. One thing that we would most like to avoid when using software that performs our everyday tasks are frustrating issues and problems that would get in the way of us using a computer properly. The most unfortunate thing about some of these issues is that they can come from the way that companies deal with their customers and the business model they have rather than because of their inability. So, would we rather have software that is convenient to use or software that's frustrating, time-consuming, and costly? In the early days of software development, software developers strove for universal compatibility across all systems. But as software started to become a more valuable commodity than the hardware that it was run on, it became more popular to have exclusive compatibility. This exclusive compatibility was so that companies could use the software that they make, the good software that they make, to release hardware no matter how good or not it actually was. In 1961 at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a group of computer engineers started a group known as the Hackers. Anyone who was part of this group was known as a hacker. This was obviously before colloquial language and media turned this term into something that means someone who breaks into people's systems to steal information. Hackers at the time were some of the most respected individuals in the computer software world. They even wrote their own document for a code of ethics that dealt with the courtesy one must have when dealing with another in the software world. These code of ethics revolved around access, freedom of information, and improvement to the quality of life. Another important part of these hacker code of ethics was something that they called the hands-on imperative. Hackers believed that essential lessons can be learned about systems, about the world, by taking things apart, seeing how they work, and using that knowledge to form better and more interesting things. In order to employ this hands-on imperative, it's required to have free access, open information, and the sharing of knowledge. This philosophy makes up a newer idea that we now know as the open source way. This is a set of rules that is obeyed by software developers that involves the sharing and the protection of another's software rights, as well as the genuine care of those who make the software to those who use it. Open source software is essentially just software where the code that's used to make it is available to the general public so they can view it, see it, edit it to how they like it, etc. It is easy to see how the sharing of all this complex information could be quite beneficial. Many companies have gotten too secure in the profitability of their work. Adopting a commercial open source business model would be beneficial in order to improve their ethics with their customer. Tesla Motors, a car company owned by Elon Musk, recently relinquished all of their patents in the interest of accelerating the growth of high-tech automobiles, thus making their company more profitable. This is the spirit of open source ethics. The proprietary software ethics protect the right to intellectual property. The open source software ethics protect the customer's access to the best service possible. One does not supersede the other. When oftentimes the software industry loses sight of their moral obligation to the customer, and thus also loses profitability in this short-sightedness. The most straightforward way to protect the customer is to develop open source software. If it is economically unfeasible to do this, then a similar mindset should be adopted. Elon Musk believes that his company has indeed benefited from this mindset in the long run. Open source software allows for greatly expanded infrastructure and usability at a fraction of the cost of proprietary equivalents. It allows customers to work for the vendor and thus improve the software that they make, inciting well-built and useful software. This also frees the development of technology, and it releases the binding that can usually inhibit the production of useful programs and shifts the business mindset to a more ethical approach. As described by the Open Source for America Foundation, the open source software model harnesses the power of distributed peer-to-peer review and transparency to create high-quality, secure, and easily integrated software at an accelerated pace and lower cost. As everyday users of computer software, we would love to find compatibility, ease of use, power, and the general exclusion of any nuisances that would otherwise get in the way of us using a computer normally. The open source software movement strives to satisfy all of these needs. Proprietary software companies must consider how they should satisfy their customers while also having the lowest development cost possible. This usually ends up with the majority of customers being supported, with a few unfortunate users left without the tools that they need. With open source software, the users can edit the software to how they like. So, businesses and other largely invested users add features that the original creators of the software would never have thought of in the first place. As average software users, we can then take these advanced features and use them for our own work. For example, the Advanced Micro Devices company released a piece of 3D software designed for drawing 3D environments in a computer. This is most prominent in video games. But they released it under the open source license. Now, in the beginning, the software only supported a select few pieces of hardware and software features, but after a few short months in the open source community, it was soon supporting all kinds of hardware, software features, and applications that the company would never have dreamed of supporting in the first place. This made the software much more ubiquitous and thus much more profitable. Recently, open source has gotten significantly more competitive, especially with large companies entering with their own big pieces of software, such as Valve Software entering with their own version of open source Linux designed to fuse the power and controllability that nerds like with the ease of use that normal users find in less powerful systems like Windows. In regards to security, open source software undergoes constant public scrutiny. It's been shown that with the millions of eyes of software developers around the world looking at open source software, that security is vastly more successful with open source than with proprietary. Proprietary simply isn't able to have the same sort of public scrutiny before it's released. Many see the open source software model and view it as a devout hippie movement designed to neutralize capitalism. While many devout hippies do cherish this perception, open source is just as capitalistic as proprietary. Open source projects fail just as easily as proprietary ones if they don't do well, and their success directly determines how much money and fame their creators receive. The open source software model promotes work on software and is all about good work on software, and it's all about finding developers that will work on software for the sake of bettering the world. That being said, an open source software developer writes a piece of software because he thinks that it finds a good in doing so, not necessarily only because it is his job. Martin Luther wrote extensively on the Christian vocation, and one of the things he wrote when dealing with acquaintances, customers, neighbors, to provide the best service possible. The open source model essentially encompasses this same ideal. Your local grocery store could choose to blockade the surrounding markets so that the surrounding neighborhoods only have access to those groceries, and in the process also sell rotten bananas and bruised apples. This is definitely more profitable in the short run, but in the long run, it can hurt business and is less ethical. Some might wonder why it would be useful at all to use open source software when things seem to be working in fairly good harmony on our computers already. Oftentimes we don't see the issues with a particular program until we have serious problems with it. Other times, due to the constricting nature of software licensing, users resort to pirating and other forms of software theft. Had the developers had good software ethics in mind, customers would be much happier and without the desire to pirate due to bad software licensing. For example, there's a video game company called Stardock Software. They make a multitude of different strategy and war strategy video games, and their software licensing is so discreet that you don't even notice it when buying, playing, or installing the game. On the other hand, Electronic Arts releases a multitude of software that has extensive digital rights management and other things that prevent even legitimate users from using the software without bumps along the way. As a result, some of the most notorious software pirates in the world work on pirating software from Electronic Arts. The open source way and the ethics of the MIT hackers speak to a good end on what every software developer should be thinking when writing a piece of software. We should realize that the reason that these software manufacturers, or some of them, are able to provide the rotten service that they do is because people continue to buy their software regardless of how much they hate the company or not, because they feel forced into it. Frustrated customers continue to pirate software, and others continue to put up with the expenses that companies put when they try and siphon as much money out of their customers as possible. We should go out of the comfort zone that we have with the current software we use to find the useful tools we need with better service. Thank you.